would grow and how fast it would grow and that kind of thing in terms of integrity of State Highway 1 in particular. Are we seeing the effects of some of the Pōkeno, Te Kaupata and other areas at Hampton Downs growth on the integrity of State Highway 1, or has that not eventuated?
Look, I don't think that has eventuated, and I don't think it will eventuate, because I think our planning has been pretty good, you know, from NZTA, but through the Regional Transport Committee to build roads that are appropriate, and a big part of that is controlled access and appropriate spacing for interchanges, etc. So NZTA have done a lot of work on that, so I think we've got a good State Highway 1 corridor that will allow us to grow into the future.
Well, that's good to know. We just get to the bottleneck a bit further up, but I shall come to in a minute in terms of our role in working with Auckland to deal with their, because some of those off and on ramps with the green light, you can take just as long coming from the airport to get actually on the motorway as you can on the rest of the journey. So we obviously need to focus, even City Council through the Upper North Island Strategic Alliance and stuff, around what Auckland is doing to their transport. And of course that's the same with rail, isn't it? If they don't get their rail link working, if they don't get their roading, aren't we going to have a road that just leads to a clogged south of Auckland? That's the question.
Yeah, I think a big focus of the RTC is looking north to Auckland, looking east to Tauranga, and southwards to Wellington. So that is a big focus of the Regional Transport Committee to recognise, and particularly the Auckland situation is impacts on us, and some of the policies are based around that in terms of working more closely with Auckland. We're working more closely on land use policies, you know, where growth occurs and how growth is accommodated. So it is a big focus of the RTC to do that.
With the Upper North Island freight story as well, are we implementing aspects of that? Because that was a key thing, getting freight through the Waikato as a corridor to port. As you say, Tauranga Port and Auckland Port also?
Yes, look, and that's the work ahead of us, which I referred to in one of the paragraphs there about now developing the policy framework around those problem statements and objectives. So there will be policy statements that are in the current RLTP, and I expect they'll be in the revised RLTP to deal with those issues.
Yeah, we've been talking about them a while. I'm just looking for the... But the other one, the 3P, are we doing, in your view, enough to support transport disadvantages, particularly those with disabilities, and then being able to access... You mentioned the one, which was the access to healthcare, which I think is very important, especially. But are we doing enough to look at the trends around the ageing population and those with disabilities that disadvantage them in a transport sense?
This might be where Mike needs to come and rescue me, sort of outside Hamilton, but I think in the Hamilton sense, I think we do an awful lot in that space, and the Access Hamilton program, which we're going to be looking at later on today, certainly has got work programs in there to deal with accessibility. I think we've had a big focus on accessibility in previous years, and I expect and hope that we'll still have that moving forward. Whether we're doing enough around the region, it's probably a little bit outside my vision.
Mike, do you want to add?
Yes, if I could just add to what Chris said. So in terms of the public transport plan review, that's one of the second problem statements in terms of rural connectivity, in terms of rural communities and how they connect. And so one of the strategies is involving other stakeholders like DHB, Ministry of Education, Wintec University, to actually try and get all the parties to work together to actually improve access, you know, I guess stretch the dollar further. So that's a clear focus in the PT plan review.
Well, we used to have Jerry Pomeroy still used as an advisor, but she's not a formal member of the Regional Transport Committee anymore, isn't she?
So Jerry sits on the Public Transport Committee.
On the Public Transport Committee.
PT Joint Committee.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And Mark, to finish off.
Stay here.
Stay there, Mike. Don't go.
In your interest, putting my ears up a little bit. The Ministry of Education, is there any talk at all about the Ministry of Education bringing back school buses?
How to stop them taking off school buses.
Well, yeah, but God, I can just see, I mean, it's a no-brainer, isn't it?
So it's probably the reverse is happening, that the ministry's position is that where there's suitable public transport, they're looking to remove themselves from providing those services. So that's an issue that we've recently faced, where there were potentially 10 services that they were looking to disestablish. We went through a process, and of the 10, 8 have been retained, and so there are 2 potentially being withdrawn because there is suitable public transport.
Right.
So I think, though, one of the strategies for the ministry, and that's part of involving them in the PT plan review, is how can we actually work better together? So where they're providing services, where we might be, where the DHB, the University Wintec, there's trying to actually get the parties working to better together. So that's why we've strategically got them involved in the PT plan review.
Yeah, no, look, I get the Varsity and Wintec one, that's really good, but the school buses just seems like the most obvious thing in the world. But there's no real push on that. They're trying to rely on public transport, is that right?
Where public transport exists, then their position is that they won't provide a service.
Wow.
So they provide service where there's no suitable public transport.
Go them. Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much for that. We'll move on to I'd like to get this bit finished well before morning tea at 11, the Waikato District Council Southern District's water supply agreement.
Yeah, that's just a note through you, Mr Chair, to say that we're still working on that and we expect to come back to committee in the next meeting. With just issues we're working through with the agreement, trying to align it with some of our other high water use agreements.
Thanks. Okay, no questions. On to the Waste Task Force.
So I'll just look for a dial a friend here. Yep. So Mr Chair, did you want to invite the chair of the task force?
Well,
to say
yeah,
a
I
few
was
words?
going to after staff had had their turn,
Sure.
but if they don't want to turn, I'm sure Mark will be happy to.
Yeah, I think we're happy to take the report as read, as we've set out there in terms of the update and where we're at, and happy to answer any questions on that.
Thanks, Mark.
Really to add, actually, just the guys have been doing some fantastic work. It's a massive project, and the consultation process has begun for the minimisation plan. And some of the feedback we're getting in is regards to the bins. So I just wanted to make the point really clearly that the consultation that we're asking for now is separate to the bin process. That seems to be the grey area out there at the moment, but otherwise we're marching on.
Okay, any questions about this part of the report? If not, you're off scot-free there.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Thanks. Okay, Parking Task Force. And I'll same again, I'll get Jeff to comment after staff have had a shot.
Yep, so take the report as in front of you as read, but I might just ask John to give a bit of an update on some of the uptake of the parking app, etc.
Yeah, just had an input from Mady Riley this morning, and they've identified that just under 1,000 people have downloaded the app for the region. The metrics they did that by that was...
John, sorry, can you come forward a bit? Yeah, sorry. A bit quiet.
Yeah, so the metrics are that we've got just under 1,000 that have loaded the app. The way that they come with that figure, because it's a national app, is they identified the first use and where they were when they actually loaded the app up. So that's how they determined the 1,000. They did mention that the uptake in the region is probably slow compared to other regions, but that they identify the factor that it is free parking at this point in time is probably adding to the fact of the low uptake, because other than find a park and staying longer than the 2 hours, you don't have to use the app.
So, hang on, I will take questions on all of these, but I just want to give Jeff, as the chair, a chance. Gary? Yeah.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, look, happy to report on behalf of the task force on the first few weeks of rollout of 2 hours free in the CBD. As the report says, task force members have met formally and informally as and when required over these weeks, really just to make sure that we're on top of everything. Overall, just going through the key issues on page 22, fair to say, I think that we feel there's been a pretty positive reaction from both the public and from business, and I'll talk about business a little bit more in a moment. Just looking at some of the, I'm getting quite a bit of anecdotal observations that there are more vacant car parks available, which is exactly what we wanted to see. Ultimately, of course, we'll be keeping close tabs on the data that we're getting back, just to sort of really understand that. There was a bit of initial angst just before we rolled out on the CBD Association's Facebook page one night, which went a bit crazy, with people suddenly waking up to the $6 an hour for the third hour. I think that's died down really, because once they sort of understood that that's actually equates to $2 an hour over 3 hours, and that in fact it is a disincentive, because we don't actually want people parking for that third hour necessarily. They are actually taking away shopping or visitor car parks, which is the very reason 2 hours free in the CBD was put in. There's been probably the odd minor glitch with the parking app in the first week or so, but John's worked really hard with AD Riley to rectify that. So that's good news. There was also some questions about some of the signage. You will have noticed the P and then the dollar signs around the CBD, and that seemed to confuse a few people. So the task force is actually working with John to actually get some other signs put up in the orange. That's correct, John? Actually explicitly stating that this is a free parking area, 2 hour free parking area. Check the meter for more information. I think it's going to take people a little bit of time to get used to it. That's human nature. I still get asked occasionally, people saying, hey, 2 hours free parking, what do we have to do? And the answer, of course, that if you're just parking for less than 2 hours, nothing is the answer. You just park and walk away. But it will take some time, I think, for that message to get across. Yeah, spray and walk away, that's right. I want to thank our parking staff and John for his extremely hard work, Nigel Ward for the very effective communications that have gone on in the first few weeks, and I want to thank the members of the Civic Choir who've done a sterling job acting as parking ambassadors and helping people get used to the system. And also the CBD retailers and the CBD Association have been very supportive. Just on that, I went to the Hamilton CBD Association AGM on Wednesday night, and at that AGM both Sarah King, the chairwoman, and NAI Harcourt's Managing Director Mike Neal, who was the guest speaker, singled out 2 hours free parking in the CBD as a factor that they believe will continue to drive the CBD's revitalisation. So it was very pleasing to get that sort of feedback in a public forum in that situation. So on behalf of the task force, our message is that so far so good, and we're really excited with the reaction we've had so far to the parking.
Thanks, Jeff. Questions of the staff, or Jeff, if you wanted, to Gary first.
Thank you very much. John, you said there's been slow uptake. Were you referring uptake of the app or uptake of people using the free parking?
Definitely the app.
Oh, okay, thank you. And what's the revenue been so far? So how many people are paying the how much revenue are you getting from the $6?
Revenue for parking on street is reduced by a dramatic amount, absolutely.
Okay, I need more than that.
Well, you know, when there's 2 hours free parking, $6 for the subsequent hours, that the revenue coming through the meters and through the app is relatively low.
I think what we're after here, which if I can interpret what Gary's after, is some comparative figures with beforehand, so we can tell the effect.
So you did estimates of, we all knew it was going to drop our revenue, so I'm not trying to catch anyone out here. I just want to find out, has it dropped as much as we expected, or I presume you empty out your meters every couple of days or day, so you'd know exactly compared with this time last year.
Yeah, but they all go into the financial system. So yeah, when the AX reports start to come out, will be the next time that we'll actually see the revenue change.
So when did we start?
So I think what John's saying, there's a bit of a timing gap until they come through the accounts. Can I take an action maybe to circulate something by email on that, councillor.
Yeah, that would be.
I think
So I think we're
Gary's
just about
made
to
a good point, because that was one of the things we said we'd be able to do, is tell
Yeah.
how the revenue worked. But I note that from the app, anyone who pays by the app, they don't, we don't see their money until after the month's accounting accrual's sort of done.
The money coming in through the app is the same as any other money on street. It has to go through to AX, and we only report through to council on the AX figures.
Sorry, I don't know what AX.
Yeah, I've no idea what that means.
AX is our, just our financial accounting system.
Does that mean that no one gets to see it until the accountants have got their grubby fingers all over it, or do we actually get to see the amount?
It's a sort of a yes.
Are there any accountants in the room? No, good. Oh,
So,
Gary.
sorry, just fill me in. So when do we start? 1st October. Okay, so we haven't even had a month yet. Okay. So you guys are not, okay, I've got this perception of the guys going around pulling the money out of the things and filling in a daily accounting, filling in a daily sheet saying, hey, this is how much money we've got banked. Haven't even got that yet.
It does go through accounts every day, yeah, so no money collected sits external to the vault that we've got in here, so it does go through the accounts, yes. Yeah, but that goes directly off through ADT through to the bank, yeah, so it's accounted by revenue.
Well, how about an action statement for the next meeting, that we get as up-to-date a report on the financials of the free parking arrangement at the next
I mean,
GNI meeting?
I'm happy with what Chris suggested, except I do understand there are some pitfalls if you rush accounting information that hasn't been reconciled and things like that. So you can give us false information by accident. So I appreciate you have to go through some processes to make sure that your information's accurate. But I think we'd all like to see some accurate impact, because we all knew there was going to be that we were going to get a plunge in revenue. But I'd like to see how much that plunge was, and is it.
We have a meeting in 5 weeks. Will that be time to get at least the first chunk of information, Chris?
We have a finance committee.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest we might have something for the finance committee as well. So either the finance committee or next GNI, we will we'll put a little report together.
Can we note that in the? Yeah, we've noted that. Thank you. Questions also from Leo, then Paula.
Yeah, I note there on paragraph 33 that Pacific Choir, they've been assisting in this. I presume we gave them a donation or something for this, did we? Would you be able to?
Nigel might want to.
Would you be able to tell me how much that was? $9,000 to them. Okay.
And that was out of the comms budget, or the
Okay. And then on 35, paragraph 35, I noticed that the parking staff are going to be issuing time-related infringements, or warnings, should we say. So basically, John, they've issued those for the first 3 weeks, is that correct?
No, the first 2 weeks was education only, no warnings given.
Okay.
And last week we started with warnings for overstays.
So 3 strikes they were out, is that right?
3 strikes was the number of warnings that was identified within the parking task force, yes.
So effectively then, we haven't really had any enforcement for time limits or meter parking
That's correct.
since the 1st of October, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Ta.
Okay, thanks. Paula?
I'm just interested in two things, I guess. One thing is just understanding how we measure the positive effect on the CBD in terms of business, getting more, the retail trend's quite good, isn't it? But just keeping a trend and understanding on that, not just numbers of cars parking and moving and so on. I'm still interested in how this contributes to the revitalisation. That's one question.
Yeah, Paula, I went to the planning floor and we do get the paymark information. We get it 6 monthly, but it is in quarterly sort of figures, and we're working through making sure that we'll end up with 2 quarters prior to the end of the trial, and we'll be able to get that FPOS data for the CBD.
I know that it won't just be all parking, it'll be a number of factors, but it would be a good thing to. And the other thing I'm interested.
Sorry, Jeff just wanted to give part of an answer on that as
did
well.
you?
Yeah, I think Calvin actually has some information on that. In terms of some of the measurements that you talked
Yes,
about.
Councillor. So I think it's a good opportunity to look at the work that the Hamilton Central Business Association report back to us, there's some metrics in there, and part of that is one of the outstanding things has always been pedestrian counts, and we've agreed with the Transport Department through Chris's team that we are going to do pedestrian counts 3 times a year, so we'll actually now be able to see pedestrian uptake as well as the pay mark, the spend, and the other economic data and vacancy rates. So we actually, as you quite rightly say, we use a whole lot of indicators to try and show the increase in the CBD revitalisation over time. So we can look back and show you what we've had, and then see the intervention of the parking, and then see what's happening over time.
Well, that's the one of the primary drivers for doing this is not just to make parking easier, but to have an end effect on the CBD. But just one further question. I've always been interested in the other half of the coin, the other side of the coin, if you like, which is what we do with the commuters who do have to take their vehicles in and out of town. So I'm still interested into when that piece of work will become available to council within this trial period, I hope, so that we do get a whole picture and how that fits with passenger transport trends, people coming in by other methods, and or those that do have to bring their car, how and when they'll be able to park all day in a relatively cost-effective manner without clogging up the central city. Those sort of things have remained unanswered for me at this point in time, but I understand you're working on them.
Yeah, Jeff and Chris?
Yeah, so the issue of where the commuters park has been mentioned, and we have some information that John supplied just in terms of that question, that on the fringes of the CBD, there do seem to be, I think it was around about 3,500 parks that are semi-available at the moment. So I think it was something like, was it 18 in total, 18,000 in total, and 15,000 are being utilised to a fair degree. So there are parks available. It's something that basically we've decided, hey, we're going to watch this and we're going to see how it kind of rolls out really, and see what the reaction is there. And we've talked about doing some work in terms of looking at park and ride sites as well. But I think it's a good idea to actually have a good look at how it rolls out first. But the other part of that I would like to say is that, this is part of our Access Hamilton strategy, and we would actually be very supportive we would like to see more people taking buses. It's that simple. So there are plenty of commuters probably who won't be in a position to do that, as Gary says, but there will be commuters who are, and they may well find it easier to catch a bus. And I think only 3% are doing it at the moment. So as part of our Access Hamilton strategy, we are encouraging more public transport. So I think it's all part of that picture. Yeah,
I guess my question was when we might sort of start to see that information come across the table while the trial. So I don't see them as separate at all. I see them as interconnected. We had a number of problems. We had the problems for people coming in to shop, short-term, visit or use one of the city services anyway. And then the second part of the problem was we had people who work in the city moving their cars about every couple of hours to avoid, cost and things like that. So, struggling to find parking. I agree with you. There could be an uptake of passenger transport, but when is the timing around that? I missed that bit. Maybe you said it, but I didn't quite. Sorry, I don't think we're totally convinced there's a significant issue there yet. We want to actually see if that is actually an issue before we do too much work on it, because it may not actually be as big an issue as has been suggested by some. I get the feedback, but anyway.
Well, it actually has been on the agenda for a couple of Access Hamilton, for a couple of parking task force meetings, and we've asked staff to provide some reports in the future, but it's not at the moment they're dealing with the free parking trial getting going.
Oh, well, maybe I'll make some comments in the debate.
Well, yeah, okay. This is a report on, these are update reports, I might add, so there won't be, there's no motion.
Well, would you like me to just to say just one statement on that then at this point? My personal view is that I've always wanted that data to be integrated with the rest. I want that information to be occurring at the same time. I I mean, I want this parking trial to be a success, I do. But I want it to solve all parts of the problem, not just parts of it. And I do think there's a commuter issue to be resolved, and that's what I hear in my feedback too. And we do have to think of the CBD as a complete unit, an integrated transport solution, which is public transport, but it is the ability to work for commuters, and it is the ability for people to do retail and come and do some services in town. All of those things to me are hand in glove, not separate. So I'd be disappointed if we were waiting a very long time to get the information I'm asking for through. Or, in other words, after the parking trial, as if the parking trial was discrete from that, because I don't think it is discrete from that. Yeah. I think it's connected.
I don't want a debate, Mark.
No, but that's my commentary.
No, I gave Paula permission to make that, to avoid a debate starting on this where we can't solve it here. But what I would say is...
I guess it's a request more than a debate. That's my request.
Hey, no. It will be discussed in future parking task force, and we'll undertake to ensure that you're aware of when that is too. Great. Okay.
There's stuff happening on that. So.
Okay. On to illegal street racing and antisocial driving behaviour. Do you have something to do with that, Chris?
Not in the last 10 years.
Not recently.
Not recently. Yeah.
Robin.
So basically an update from previous committee where we had presentations from residents in the Onion Road area. I have been working with the New Zealand Police, Waikato District Council and Waipa. They have to work through a process to get relevant clauses in their bylaws, but we have what we need in our bylaw. And with councillors' permission, the police and I are intending to embark upon looking at doing, I guess, like a trial demonstration site to understand the processes that need to be gone through, signage, consultation and all of that, before we look at anything larger happening. And we'd be working alongside Waipa and Waikato so that together we can have a consistent approach for how this might proceed in the future.
It's good to hear that we're ready to go on that. Yep. Okay, any questions? If not, thanks very much, Robin. Oh, sorry, Gary. Gee, you got in just in the nick of time.
So, thank you. So we've just, what have we done to improve things? Has anything improved? Nothing's improved for the people out there, eh?
For Onion Road, there was some no stopping installed by the Waikato District, so where the people were parking was actually in Waikato District, so that the issues spanned both.
The people who were causing the issues, you put up, sorry, what's no parking? What do you mean?
No stopping signs.
Yep.
So
and has that been policed and is that reduced?
Yeah, and so what they're seeing from a police perspective is that they've had a huge reduction. They haven't had complaints come through. It's one of those issues, though. You apply pressure in one spot and they've got some other locations that are starting to show as well. So, so that's an ongoing issue, and that's where the police are tracking those sorts of requests and trying to manage that.
Okay.
I've noticed, Gary, also that when they do move to other areas, at least one of them happens to be near my place, and the police are following very closely behind, and they're not getting the chance in that area a couple of k's away to congregate before they moved on again. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Thanks there, Robin. Setting of new speed limits.
I'll just quickly talk to that one. So we're just alerting council to the fact that NZTA are consulting on a proposal to lift the speed limits on the Tauranga Eastern Link, or the Te Puke bypass, and the Cambridge section of the Waikato Expressway. I guess there's an opportunity, if council wanted to make submissions. Submissions close this Thursday. We've assumed that council wouldn't submit, and that's based on the previous council's submission to the speed rule at its meeting of 20th of June 2017. So at that meeting, you voted on opposing the general lift up to 110, and that was defeated. But council proposed an amendment to our submission that requested lowering the tolerance of speeds over the speed limits. So the previous approach that council has taken is to not oppose lifting to 110, but to ask for a lowering of the tolerance of speeds above the speed limit. So we submitted to the rule on the 21st of June. So I'm happy to take direction from council whether you want us to submit to
Why
this
wouldn't we
proposal or
submit
not.
the same again to this new phase of the...
Yep, if that's the direction from council, we can certainly put in a submission that just reflects the intent of the submission to the speed rule. So we're happy to take
I've got
direction.
some questions, but I couldn't understand why you weren't going to do the same as last time.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. So we'll take the direction from council, from committee today.
Okay, no, Jeff?
Is this a comment or question or?
A question first, but I mean, we might have to put in the resolution that we put in a submission and then you can comment. So have you got any questions?
No.
Okay. I think when we go to receiving the report, we'll add a bit about that if councillors wish to. So we'll just hang around to see, because we've only got one more bit to do, and we'll come back to discussion on that point if we're putting in a submission. Oh, sorry, Gary.
Can you just clarify, Chris, again, where our position is at the moment?
So in the June meeting, council approved a submission to the New Zealand Transport Agency on the new rule for setting of speed limits. So at that meeting, you had a motion that you tested to oppose the part of that speed rule that allowed the lifting up to 110k, but you voted as a committee not to oppose it.
Okay.
But you asked us to put this following clause in the submission, and I'm just reading from our submission. We request that consideration be given to a lowering of the tolerances used in the enforcement of travelling speeds for all speed limit regimes. So you turned it into a request to lower the tolerance right across the board and not just for 110 Ks.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Gary. Okay, look, we'll just do the future-proof strategy. Blair is... Oh, you're going to do it, Kelvin? Yep.
So it's just an update on the process currently with the submissions on the future-proof strategy update. The material discussion will come back to council following the implementation committee, of which Mayor King and Councillor McPherson are of, and that will come back ideally to each council either December or early in the new year as per the report.
And just noting that Andrew and I are of the opinion that things may need to change in future-proof strategy document a little more than would have done had the previous government continued, that there will be new national policy statements coming out which we may need to factor in somehow at some stage sooner than otherwise might have been the case, but we don't know the details, obviously. Okay, we'll just go back to the resolution, which was on page, staff recommendation, sorry, page 18, which was that the Growth and Infrastructure Committee receives the report. I think that can be A, and if we want to have a B, the council should submit on the speed limits, even though this is, it's all right, Blair, you've been done and gone. Too late. Done. No, just... He came and, yeah, the future is past. Sorry, where were we? Oh, if council wants to put in a submission officially, then it would need to be in line with our previous one. In this case, while they're only talking about 110 in two particular stretches of road, it would be, I would say, to reduce the tolerance for those two speeds, because that's all the submission is, the process is about on this occasion, if you get what I mean. So previously our submission was a general one on all speed limits. Now we're being asked if we want to have a say on the 110 on 2 bits of road. So the idea would be that we would submit on the tolerance, the enforcement tolerance there if you want to. So I'm happy to take a B there if we want. Gary?
I would support that. I mean, my position is that I think that when you've got roads that are specifically engineered such that they can go to 110 km, there's a huge efficiency and probably a safety issue that allowing that to happen is right. But I've never particularly been, if the speed limit's 50, it should be 50. I don't know why we have any tolerances, but anyway, you know, the rule is the rule. If you snick the ball, you're out, no matter how little the snick it is.
I'll take that as the speech in favour of B.
Yeah.
But I
So
think
I'm happy to move that too.
let's try this wording, that council submit to the 110k proposal from NZTA for Cambridge and Papamoa stretches of highway, that the speed, the enforcement tolerance, support the speed limit, support the proposed 110 speed limit, and that the tolerance be more rigidly enforced, or that be lowered. I don't think it's 0 is technically possible. I think what Leo talked to us about last time was the difference between 10 kph and 5 or something along those.
Mr Chair, is a percentage. For example, is a 10k tolerance, which is a blanket. So at 100k you can get away with 110. At 50k you can get away with 60k. But I would rather see a 10k tolerance, a 10% tolerance, which means you'd only do 55.
Sorry, we're getting the whole issue's getting confused. I think we need to come up with a resolution on the over Smoko over the break.
Yeah, have a tolerance, but have it as a percentage.
But the tolerance then would be 121 kph, which is not what Gary's talking about. So I can see it's getting tied in knots here. If it was 10% on 110, you get what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just, let's sort out, see if there's a resolution that people want to put up with the wording, and we'll come back and deal with that straight after the break. Sorry, but I don't think we can do it in committee. Okay, councillors, let's have a break for about 12 minutes, and we'll come back with the, we'll come back to the NZTA report, and then we'll deal with that motion. And following the NZTA will be Access Hamilton, if that's all right, Andrew and Mike. Thanks. So break until 12 minutes from now on that clock. Just after, a couple of minutes after.